Wasn't Ted inspiring? Every single sentence he said built on the last one. And he gave meaning, and it came across several domains. Now we're going to get personal. Could you please look at the more normal of the people on either side of you and shake hands with them? Do it quickly and you'll have more options. Some of you aren't looking either way. Is there a problem? Some of you are helping other people shake hands. Now, getting personal. Think about what you most long for. Think about how you want to do meaningful work with people that are your friends and be loved. And underlying that, there's a core thing that we all long for, and Claire and Granger figured it out. Now, how many of you have more than 3 interests in your life? Just look around. We do, but what do we do with that? I believe the core underlying thing goes back to what Claire and Granger discovered. There's a friend of mine named Mark Fetterman. Like you, he has several interests. He's a realtor. He's the founder of a Toastmasters chapter in San Quentin. He brings guests. I was one. I sat next to Granger. He stood up and he talked about one wall in his cell where he'd seen it for a long time. And it had this wandering crack in it. And he says, I'm going to look at that crack every day, and I'm going to find focus and meaning and help me figure out what I'm going to do when I get out of here. So one day he was looking at it, and it was the Trinity Alps, and that was a wandering river, and he was going to be a river guide. Another time he thought, I do these exercises every morning and afternoon with not any sports equipment available. So they're my warm-up exercises. And he kept focusing on that. And then when he got out, several years later, because in that Toastmasters talk, he'd gotten clear that what he wanted was focus, beauty, and connection. 3 words that somebody earlier talked about, Guy. And they would be his guideposts in his life. So I introduced him to Claire. Claire is wealthy. Claire has one passion among the 3, and it's this. She wants, for every time there's a new public building built in the city, that it should have 1% of the money that goes towards the construction to be for public art. She found it meaningful, like the Vietnam Memorial. Or imagine a big prism standing off to the side with rays of light, rainbow light, that people felt when they went by, and they paused and they gathered, and sometimes they talked about it. It's like the High Line. So I introduced her to Granger, and he said, staring at a wall all the time, I really believe in places that can draw our attention. So they testified together, and the supervisors, and they're quite a pair. He was wearing his best jeans, and she was wearing a classic Dior. They testified, they left people spellbound because they were speaking from their authentic self around a shared sweet spot of mutual interest. Mutuality matters. It's where meaning happens. It's where people that otherwise have very little in common find common ground and find meaning and stand out. They got a lot of media coverage. Flash forward 5 years, and he was working as the warm-up coach in the string of racquetball clubs that Claire and her husband had. Now, where do I take that? I take that with this thought. It's not about you. It's not about me. We have an increasingly complex, connected, information-flooded world. But it is about us. And the people who will thrive in the future, the people will be sought after. They have several domains of interest, but they do 3 things, and I'm going to talk to you about it briefly. Turn back to that more or less normal-looking person and ask them if they'd be your partner for a moment. Move quickly. Now, could you just hold your hand up together and clasp hands so that it goes like that? It's different from a high five. You can stay that way the rest of the talk, or you can let go now. Mutuality does matter. But here's the funny thing. There's 3 things that are important. And the first one should be obvious, but less than 3% of us actually know what it is. It's our top talent and our second talent. Our top talent and our second talent. It's talent and temperament. Talent and temperament. But what do you really do well? With whom and how? And when do you not? But the second one is, and this is the hard one, I know from personal experience, it's the capacity to seek out and work with people who are extremely different than you. See, there's a problem. We like to hang out with people who act right, like us. And when they don't, we get irritated. It's instinctive. Unless you have a frontal lobotomy, you react against people faster than you go towards them. It's part of our way that we survive. However, that wonderful sweet spot of shared interest, when we find it sooner in a conversation or interaction, it can be an inoculation. It can help us even overlook those ways where they do things in that bizarre way, because the payoff is worthwhile. And after a while, we can even kid about it. And where do you see that happening most? You see it happening where people work in high-stakes situations, like in surgery. Everybody in the surgery hall has a team and a connection, and they know what they're supposed to do, hopefully. And it also happens with the military in the field. And when they come back, after having been there for each other, after knowing their temperament and talent, the rest of the world seems pallid. They want something that gives them meaning, and so do we. So I say to you, what is your top talent? And I say to you, seek out people that are wildly different than you. It's been such a joy to eavesdrop on many of you, by the way, throughout this day. And what are they like that's different than you? How many of you grew up shy? We now call it introverted. Look around. Well, I did. I didn't talk much until college, actually, at all. Very minimal. People project onto you when you don't talk a lot, for good and for bad. But you want to hang out with people different than you. Outgoing, introverted, there's benefits. Fast thinkers, slow thinkers, there's benefits. Optimistic, pessimistic. We're a culture that really is hell-bent towards optimism, but pessimism, they see things that some of the optimistic people like me don't see. So seeking those out is like plotting your life to have more meaning, more accomplishment, and more fun and more adventure. Because together, when you do that sweet spot, you not only might accomplish something or help each other. Because I don't believe in just giving. Some people give. How many of you had someone give in an irritatingly unhelpful way? And you can't really say anything to them because they mean well. But the more we get grounded and we know what our talent is, we're more grounded and we're able to see other people more clearly, what they say and don't say. So what are the ways we do that to connect? Here are some of the other ways. First of all, I wrote a book about this about a decade ago. I think it's ironic because it's called Getting What You Want, which wasn't the title I wanted. And it still bugs me. But I called it Triangle Talk. Now, you think this is obvious, but I know from all my years as a reporter, it's very, very rare. When you notice someone, it's like fishing. Fishing, because when some intensity goes up, you found their interest, what they either don't like or do. Pursue that. When they have an interest, do the you, then me, then us. Suggest something to them. Say, I gather you're interested in this. You. Me, I too share that interest in this way. Us. It'd be fun to explore if there's ways we could help each other or maybe co-create something. Now that can sound stilted at first, but it comes out pretty naturally after a while, and you'll notice some things. The most common trait in our communication in the U.S. today is we're reverting it more back to ourselves, and we're using I and me more. And when we tell someone an idea, they'll say, yeah, I've got that too. I, me, I. And when people ask for something, they talk about it in terms of themselves. And over 80% of the organizations that present to their employees is about what we are as a company, not what's in it for you. So just notice whether you love someone, hate them, or just met them. It really helps a lot to do a you, me, and us. Now I'm going to switch gears. Because the final trait is how you become more quotable. How people hear what you say and actually keep on listening, even if they didn't think they're interested. So there's some ways we can do that. One of them, I coached a man who went to speak at an investors conference where everybody wears black, talks 3 times as fast as me, and is quite assertive. And they have 20 minutes on stage, which of course is a long time, and they use technical jargon and they talk about their favorite topic. So when my colleague came on stage, instead of walking real fast, he walked a little bit slower, lower, and less. I'm sure some of you recall dimly hearing about Gypsy Rose Lee. She had a colorful career as a stripper. She said, anything worth doing well is worth doing slowly. Now, I don't know what she meant by that. But one of the things you can think of is gravitas across age, sex, and ethnicity is when you're first around people, lower voice, slower, and less. Lower movements, slower movements, and less. Then they make up their mind about you. We all have facets in us, and that's one facet we all have. So when he walked on stage, slower, he got their attention. And he rolled up his suit sleeve, and then he rolled up his shirt sleeve, and then he pointed at this patch. Now, motion draws attention. Motion increases emotion. Specificity causes clarity. So he said, see this patch? When this patch goes on the market, he was a biotech company, I neglected to say. When this patch goes on the market, you'll feel the effects throughout your body faster than a Porsche can go from 0 to 90. Now, just notice what happened. His body was a billboard. He did one of the best ways that you can become quotable. Compared to what? Compare your thing to an action in a different domain. And he did it with an aspirational reference that mattered. This was about 8 years ago when Porsches were hot to that market. Hope I don't get in trouble for that. But he did it smoothly, and he basically fed people something that stuck in their mind. And so he was the most quoted person at the conference, even though his news was not the most important. So when you think about your body in a setting, you think about what's behind you. If there's a lot of pattern, people can't remember as much. If there's a pattern on the upper half of their body, they don't listen as long. So I want you to think, if it really matters to me, get specific sooner. Now this next one, it's hard for me to say it out loud, so I might stutter. I revert to stuttering. My mother washed out my mouth with soap for saying this, and she's watching. Shut up. Shut up sooner. Shut up more. Say things so specifically that they sink in. We can absorb them. We can have a thread to our conversation, increasingly rare, so that that connection happens. In the preemie ward of Stanford Hospital, I said a wild idea. I see these people in San Rafael, California. The Hispanic people are walking, smiling more, lower, slower, less. They have a smile on their face. They have a genial face and repose. I think that some of them should be in the preemie ward of the hospital. I think their presence might improve the health of the kids. 2 things happened. One thing. The kids responded to these women. They're all women, flowing, musical voices, lower, slower, less. A lot more smiling. We presume it must be that. Nothing else changed. 14% improved recovery. That wasn't all. When the nurses were asked what they thought of their own performance and that of others, there was a generally more favorable view of each other in terms of kindness and competence. Kindness and competence. You see, when we see something that moves us, we project other qualities on it that have no relation to it. So as you're thinking about mutuality matters, you think about how you get in sync with someone, literally. It's no surprise that many people get in sync, walk together. And it's better to talk things through on the way to the meeting than when you're sitting down in the meeting. So as you're reflecting about having a life of mutuality, think about what's controlling my mind. What am I doing now? Where's my attention? I had the wonderful opportunity with a cultural anthropologist many years ago to go to Disney in Orlando and to go into one of their colorful hotels with giraffes and pictures on the floor and music and sounds and all kinds of excitement. We were hired because they wanted to know what the toddlers and the infants that were walking with their parents or in their parents' arms, going through the lobby and the halls, what attracted their attention, because they wanted to see how they could attract their attention more and keep more of the kids entranced. No surprise. So we walked in and we had 3 days to figure it out. We were somewhat nervous, but again, it's so much fun to work with someone who you had that sweet spot of common interest and completely different backgrounds. We were just having a great time. He said, so we're going to sit still and we're going to walk around and we'll observe and we'll come back. Now here's the embarrassing thing. It took us only 2 hours, and it was blatantly obvious, the answer, and we had a moral judgment to make. Do we want to get paid for the full 3 days? Or do we want to tell him now? She said, he said they won't maybe believe us. So we decided we'd look around all 3 days in different parts of it, and we'd tell them, do you want us to tell you now, or confirm it by looking more? Well, here's the funny thing. And all the whimsical, interesting animals and the people in costume and the warmth of the Disney way behind the counters, there's so much interesting stuff happening. We wouldn't have bet what the actual thing was that captured the minds of those people. And this is what it was. But this won't surprise you after I tell you. It were the cell phones. Where was the parents' attention? What was the most important thing in the life? So whenever those toddlers, or infants even, saw the cell phone, they'd reach out to it, or they'd give it attention, or they'd want to hold it near them on their body. So what holds your attention controls your life. And what gets rewarded gets repeated. Now, this is all pretty powerful when you think, according to the book Connected and some great research, that our behavior is contagious to the 3rd degree. That means your friends may be drinking more, eating more, talking a different way, but we imitate each other to that. So here, please raise the hand again. Clasp the hand of someone near you. In a civilization, when love is gone, we turn to justice. And when justice is gone, we turn to power. And when power is gone, we turn to violence. Violence isn't just shooting. Violence is ignoring humanity. And the anecdote is mutuality. Thank you very much.